Hey, waitress, don't just stand there. Bring the wine to the VIP table. Now. The entire ballroom fell silent in an instant. Jordan Ellis stood frozen beneath the shimmer of crystal chandeliers and the chill of towering glass walls. Just one sentence, yet it stirred up decades of memories. Being overlooked, misjudged, misplaced. Victor Crane, the arrogant billionaire, didn't even try to hide his contempt as his eyes swept over her simple outfit and natural hair. To him, she was nothing more than a misplaced server. Jordan slowly stepped forward, her fingers brushing lightly over the edge of a silver table. But before she could speak, a restaurant manager stepped in, nervously handing her a tray of glasses. "It's okay," she said softly, her tone steady, like a woman used to commanding rooms. "Either serve or get out," Crane barked, his voice dripping with mockery. Laughter erupted from the crowd. Dozens of eyes turned, curious, amused, judgmental. But in just a few seconds, the entire room would realize the biggest mistake of the night wasn't the confusion. It was daring to underestimate her. The crystal chandeliers cast their golden glow across the grand ballroom, but the light feels cold against the marble floors. Jordan Ellis steps through the entrance of the tech conglomerate's annual gala. She moves with quiet confidence, her shoulders squared, but there's something deliberate about her simplicity, as if she's chosen to blend into the background rather than command attention. Around her, the elite of Silicon Valley mingle in their designer gowns and $1,000 suits, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Jordan's fingers brush against the worn silver locket at her throat, a nervous habit she's carried for years. Her eyes scan the room methodically, taking in faces, reading body language, calculating power dynamics like pieces on a chessboard. Near the bar, a group of executives cluster around Victor Crane, the billionaire tech mogul whose name graces half the buildings in the city. His voice booms across the space as he gestures grandly, his audience hanging on every word. Jordan's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly as she watches him, her grip on her clutch purse growing firmer. The waiter brushes past her, apologizing quickly, but Jordan barely registers the interaction. Her attention is fixed on a figure in the shadows near the far wall, someone who nods almost imperceptibly in her direction. The exchange lasts only a second, but it's enough to confirm what she already knows. Tonight will be different. The conversations around her blur into white noise, but Jordan catches fragments. Discussions of mergers, acquisitions, the latest IPO valuations. She belongs in these conversations, should be leading them, but instead she finds herself observing from the periphery, her presence seemingly invisible to the power brokers who control her industry. Her phone buzzes softly in her purse, a text from her legal team. "Everything in place, awaiting your signal." Jordan's thumb hovers over the screen for a moment before she slides the device back into her bag. Not yet. The timing has to be perfect. Across the room, Victor Crane's laughter cuts through the ambient noise like a blade. Jordan's eyes narrow slightly, memories flickering behind her composed facade. A younger version of herself, standing in a different room, facing similar dismissal and cruelty. But that was then. Tonight, she's ready. Can't you imagine the moment someone underestimates you and regrets it instantly? Jordan approaches the registration table, her movements fluid and purposeful. The young woman behind the counter looks up briefly, her smile professional but distant. "Name?" she asks, fingers poised over her tablet. "Jordan Ellis," she replies, her voice steady and clear. The woman's eyes don't register recognition as she scrolls through the guest list. Around them, other attendees breeze past, their credentials seemingly assumed rather than questioned. "I don't see you on the main list," the woman says, her tone shifting slightly. "Are you with catering?" The staff entrance is around back." The words land like a physical blow, but Jordan's expression remains neutral, though her knuckles whiten slightly as she grips her purse. "I'm here for the event, same as everyone else," Georgia responds evenly, though there's a subtle tension in her shoulders. She produces her invitation elegant cardstock with embossed lettering and places it on the table. The woman examines it with obvious skepticism, as if looking for signs of forgery. Behind Jordan, she can hear whispered conversations. "Who is she? I don't recognize her. They're letting anyone in these days." The comments aren't meant for her ears, but they carry clearly enough. Jordan's fingers find her locket again, a grounding touch that keeps her centered. The manager approaches, his expression stern. "Is there a problem here?" he asks, his eyes fixed on Jordan rather than the registration volunteer. "We've had issues with people trying to crash the event. Security is very important." The implication hangs in the air between them. Jordan's smile tightens, but she maintains her composure. "No problem at all. Just checking in like everyone else." She can feel the weight of stares from nearby guests, their conversations pausing as they observe the interaction with barely concealed interest. The manager's scrutiny feels invasive, his gaze traveling from her modest outfit to her understated accessories. "And you're here as whose guest?" he asks, his tone suggesting that someone like her couldn't possibly belong on her own merit. "I am here on my own invitation," Jordan replies, her voice carrying just enough edge to convey her growing frustration while maintaining professional courtesy. She notices how other guests, particularly the white executives, move through the checkpoint without question, their presence simply accepted as natural and expected. A woman in a sequined dress leans toward her companion, not bothering to lower her voice. The diversity initiatives are getting out of hand. Next, they'll be requiring quotas for events like this. The comment draws knowing nods from those around her. Jordan's jaw clenches, but she forces herself to breathe deeply. Her phone buzzes again, another message from her team. She glances at it quickly. Media outlets standing by. Attorney General confirmed for 9 p.m. The timing is crucial, and she can't afford to let emotion derail her carefully orchestrated plan. Finally, the registration volunteer finds Jordan's name and reluctantly hands her a badge. But instead of the VIP designation that should accompany her status, it's marked simply as guest. Jordan notices the discrepancy but doesn't comment, tucking the badge into her jacket pocket rather than wearing it. As she moves into the main ballroom, Jordan can feel eyes following her. Staff members glance at her with confusion, clearly wondering why she's not in uniform. A waiter approaches with a tray of champagne but hesitates when he sees her, uncertain whether she's a guest or colleague. The ballroom is magnificent. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, elaborate floral arrangements, and a stage where the evening's speakers will address the crowd. Jordan positions herself strategically, close enough to hear the important conversations, but far enough to observe without drawing attention. She watches as Victor Crane holds court near the center of the room, his gestures animated as he regales his audience with stories of his latest acquisition. The crowd around him laughs at his jokes, hangs on his every word, treats him like the royalty he believes himself to be. Jordan's fingers trace the outline of her locket, feeling the engraved initials of the mentor who gave it to her, a black woman who faced similar challenges decades earlier and taught Jordan that sometimes the most powerful weapon is patience. "Choose your battles," she had said, "but when you choose, make sure you win." A server approaches Jordan, tapping her shoulder. "Excuse me, but shouldn't you be in the kitchen? The catering supervisor is looking for extra hands." The assumption is automatic, unconscious, but no less cutting for its casualness. Jordan turns to face the server, her expression calm but her eyes blazing with quiet intensity. "I'm not with catering," she says simply. But the server looks unconvinced, glancing at Jordan's understated appearance and back at the formally dressed guests around them. "Then why aren't you mingling?" the server asks, genuine confusion in her voice. "Everyone else is networking, making connections. You're just standing here?" The observation is innocent enough, but it highlights Jordan's isolation in the crowd. Before Jordan can respond, a sharp voice cuts through the ambient noise. "You there!" Victor Crane's voice booms across the space, and Jordan realizes with a sinking feeling that he's addressing her. The conversations around them begin to fade as attention turns toward the unfolding interaction. Crane approaches with the confidence of a man who's never been challenged, his expensive suit and gleaming watch symbols of his untouchable status. His eyes rake over Jordan with undisguised contempt, taking in her simple outfit and natural hairstyle. "Who let you in?" he demands, his voice carrying clearly across the now silent ballroom. "This isn't diversity hour. We have standards here." The cruelty in his tone is casual, practiced, as if he's delivered similar insults countless times before. Jordan's pulse quickens, but her voice remains steady. "I'm here for the event, same as you," she replies, though her jaw is subtly clenched. Around them, the crowd has formed a loose circle, their champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips as they watch the confrontation unfold. "Same as me?" Crane's laugh is harsh and mocking. "I don't think so, sweetheart. I built this industry. I employ thousands of people. I don't need to sneak into events through the back door." His allies in the crowd nod approvingly, their silence complicit in his cruelty. The words hit Jordan like physical blows, each one designed to diminish and humiliate. She can feel the weight of every stare, the whispered conversations that have started up around the edges of the crowd. Her phone buzzes in her purse. Another message from her team, but she doesn't dare check it now. "I didn't sneak in anywhere," Jordan says, her voice carrying despite the tremor she fights to suppress. "I was invited, just like everyone else here." But even as she speaks, she can see the doubt in the faces around her, the way people are reassessing her presence. A manager Jordan recognizes from the registration table approaches, his expression stern. "Ma'am, if you're not on the guest list, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We can't have people disrupting the event." The threat is clear, public, designed to maximize her humiliation. Jordan's fingers find her locket again, drawing strength from the memory of the woman who gave it to her. "I am on the guest list," she says firmly, producing her invitation once more. But the manager barely glances at it, his attention focused on the billionaire whose approval he clearly seeks. "Anyone can print an invitation," Crane interjects, his voice dripping with disdain. "The question is whether you belong here, and looking at you—" He lets the sentence hang, the implication clear to everyone present. The crowd has grown larger now, drawn by the spectacle of someone being put in their place. Jordan can hear the whispered comments. She must be confused. Security should handle this. How embarrassing for her. Each word is a small knife, cutting deeper than the last. Jordan's breath comes shorter now, her composure cracking despite her best efforts. She grips her phone tightly, her lifeline to the plan she's spent months preparing. Around her, the faces blur together, some curious, some hostile, all focused on her humiliation. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Jordan tries one more time, but her voice is barely audible above the murmur of the crowd. She can feel sweat beading on her forehead, her carefully maintained calm beginning to fracture under the weight of their collective judgment. Crane steps closer, his presence intimidating and overwhelming, "The only misunderstanding," he says, his voice low but carrying clearly, "is you thinking you belong in the same room as your betters." The words echo in the sudden silence, their cruelty breathtaking in its casual delivery. Jordan's world narrows to this moment. The faces surrounding her, the weight of their stares, the humiliation burning in her chest. But underneath the hurt, something else is building. Something patient and calculating and utterly ruthless. She thinks of her mentor's words, "When they underestimate you, let them. Their blindness is your advantage." Jordan's grip on her phone tightens as she prepares to send the signal that will change everything. The attack comes swift and coordinated, as if Crane has orchestrated this kind of humiliation before. "You're clearly here to serve," he declares, his voice carrying across the ballroom with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "So serve." The manager appears at Jordan's elbow as if summoned, holding a silver tray laden with empty champagne glasses. The symbolism is unmistakable. A deliberate attempt to reduce her to the role they believe she should occupy. Around them, the crowd has thickened, drawn by the spectacle of someone being publicly disciplined. Jordan's hands shake almost imperceptibly as she looks at the tray, then at the faces surrounding her. Some wear expressions of cruel amusement. Others seem uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. The silence stretches, heavy with anticipation and barely contained malice. "Take it," Crane commands, his voice harder now. "Or leave. Those are your options." The ultimatum hangs in the air like a blade, designed to force her into either submission or retreat. Either choice would mark her as defeated, as someone who doesn't belong in their world. Jordan's fingers reach for the tray, her movements slow and deliberate. She can feel every eye in the room tracking her actions, waiting to see if she'll break. The metal is cold against her palms, heavier than she expected, weighted with the significance of the moment. For a heartbeat, she holds it, letting them think they've won. Then, with a control that surprises even her, she sets it down on a nearby table. The sound of metal against marble echoes in the silence, like a gunshot. "I'm not here for that," she says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The simple statement carries more weight than any argument could, a quiet declaration of her refusal to be diminished. Crane's face darkens, his authority challenged in front of his peers. "Excuse me?" he snaps, stepping closer. "I don't think you understand your position here. You're nobody, you're nothing, and you'll do what I tell you to do." The cruelty in his words is breathtaking. But Jordan doesn't flinch. Instead, she reaches into her purse and pulls out her phone, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Around them, the crowd murmurs with confusion and growing tension. "What are you doing?" Crane demands, but Jordan doesn't answer. She's already typing, sending carefully crafted messages to contacts she's spent months cultivating. The first goes to the state's attorney general, a woman who knew Jordan's mentor, who understands the importance of this moment. The second message goes to her legal team, a simple code that sets in motion a plan weeks in the making. The third goes to a journalist she's worked with before, someone who specializes in exposing corporate corruption and abuse of power. Jordan's breathing is shallow but controlled as she works, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She can feel the crowd's confusion growing, their certainty about her place in their world beginning to crack. "Security!" Crane bellows, his composure finally slipping. "Get this woman out of here. She's obviously disturbed, possibly dangerous." The desperation in his voice is palpable, a man who suddenly realized he may have misjudged his target. But Jordan isn't finished. She activates her phone's recording function, the small device capturing every word of the confrontation. The evidence she's gathering will be crucial for what comes next. Proof of the systematic discrimination she's documenting. A security guard approaches, his expression uncertain. He's clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but bound by the authority of those who employ him. "Ma'am," he says quietly, "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." Jordan looks up at him, her expression calm despite the chaos around her. "I understand you're doing your job," she says, her voice carrying clearly. "But I'm not leaving. Not yet." The quiet authority in her tone gives the guard pause, confusion flickering across his face. Around them, the crowd has grown restless. Some are pulling out their phones, capturing the confrontation for social media. Others are whispering among themselves, debating whether they're witnessing justice or injustice. The carefully controlled atmosphere of the gala is fracturing. Jordan notices a young woman at the edge of the crowd, someone she recognizes from industry events. The woman's expression is troubled, her loyalty clearly divided between the power structure that controls her career and her conscience. After a moment's hesitation, she approaches. "Mrs. Ellis," she says quietly, her voice barely audible above the crowd's murmur. "I have something you might want to see." She presses a small USB drive into Jordan's palm, her hand trembling slightly. "It's about what happened to your startup, the real story." Jordan's eyes widen slightly as she pockets the device. The young woman melts back into the crowd before anyone can notice the exchange, but the implications are enormous. Evidence of Crane's past sabotage, the deliberate destruction of her earlier venture, finally within reach. The pieces of her plan are falling into place with precision, each element timed to maximize impact. Jordan's phone buzzes with confirmations from her team. The media is in position, the legal documentation is ready, and the Attorney General has cleared her schedule for an emergency call. Crane's face has gone red with rage, his carefully maintained facade cracking under the pressure. "I don't know what game you think you're playing," he snarls, "but it ends now. You're embarrassing yourself and everyone here." Jordan looks up at him, her expression serene despite the storm raging around them. "The only embarrassment here," she says quietly, "is how you've chosen to treat another human being." Her words carry clearly in the sudden silence, their simple dignity a stark contrast to his cruelty. The crowd shifts uncomfortably, some beginning to question what they're witnessing. A few people at the edges start to disperse, unwilling to be associated with the increasingly ugly scene, but most remain, drawn by the spectacle and curious about how it will end. Jordan's phone rings, the sound cutting through the tension like a blade. She glances at the screen. It's the call she's been waiting for. "Excuse me," she says politely. "I need to take this." Crane laughs harshly. "You think a phone call is going to save you? You think anyone cares about whatever pathetic connections you might have?" His arrogance is complete, his blindness to the danger he's in almost breathtaking. Jordan answers the call, her voice steady and professional. "Hello, General Morrison," she says, her words carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "Thank you for making time for this." Around her, the crowd stirs, with confusion and growing unease. The voice on the other end is crisp and authoritative, designed to carry across the room. Jordan Ellis, CEO of Horizon Innovations, is one of the most respected leaders in the tech industry, the Attorney General's voice announces. She's also a close personal friend and trusted colleague. The effect is immediate and devastating. Crane's face goes pale, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. The crowd erupts in whispers and shocked exclamations, as the reality of the situation begins to dawn on them. But Jordan isn't finished. She ends the call and immediately opens her tablet, the screen displaying the logo of Horizon Innovations. With a few swift taps, she projects the image onto the ballroom's main screen, where it towers over the crowd in brilliant clarity. "I built this industry you're standing in," she says, her voice carrying with quiet authority. The logo on the screen shows Horizon Innovations as the gala's primary sponsor, their name prominent at the bottom of every invitation, every program, every piece of marketing material for the event. The crowd's whispers turn to gasps of recognition and horror. Many of them work for companies that do business with Horizon Innovations. Others have benefited from the technologies Jordan's company has developed. The woman they've been watching being humiliated is not just their peer, she's their superior. A board member Jordan recognizes pushes through the crowd, his expression mortified. "Ms. Ellis," he says, his voice strained with embarrassment. "I had no idea. We never would have allowed. Please, accept our deepest apologies." Jordan nods graciously, but her attention is focused on Crane, who stands frozen in the center of the crowd. The USB drive in her pocket feels warm against her palm, its contents about to add another layer to his humiliation. "There's something else," she says, her voice cutting through the crowd's nervous chatter. She inserts the USB drive into her tablet and new images appear on the screen. Documents, emails, evidence of corporate sabotage dating back years. The crowd reads in stunned silence as the story unfolds. Crane's deliberate destruction of Jordan's earlier startup, the stolen technologies, the bribes and threats used to eliminate competition. The evidence is overwhelming, damning, and completely undeniable. "This is what happens," Jordan says, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment, "when someone underestimates not just me, but the power of truth and preparation." Her words echo in the silent ballroom, their impact seismic. Crane's world crumbles in real time as the implications sink in. His face cycles through disbelief, rage, and finally terror as he realizes the full scope of his exposure. Around him, his allies begin to distance themselves, their loyalty evaporating in the face of scandal. The crowd disperses rapidly, people pulling out phones to call lawyers, publicists, and crisis management teams. Within minutes, the story will be spreading across social media, news outlets, and industry publications. Crane's reputation, built over decades, is being destroyed in real time. Jordan stands calmly in the center of the chaos, her plan executed with precision and devastating effect. She's not celebrating. There's no joy in another person's downfall, but there's satisfaction in justice finally being served. The aftermath unfolds with brutal efficiency. Within hours, Crane's company stock plummets as investors flee the scandal. The board of directors, faced with overwhelming evidence of their CEO's corruption, votes for his immediate removal. His carefully constructed empire begins to crumble. The manager who handed Jordan the tray finds himself blacklisted from every major event company in the city. His reputation precedes him now, marked by association with the scandal. Other staff members who participated in the humiliation face similar consequences, their careers derailed by their casual cruelty. Social media explodes with "Justice for Jordan," the hashtag trending globally within hours. The video footage from the gala spreads virally, showing the stark contrast between Crane's arrogance and Jordan's dignity. Public opinion shifts decisively against him and those who enabled his behavior. News outlets pick up the story, their headlines damning, "Tech billionaire's racist tirade destroys empire," "Corporate corruption exposed at charity gala," "CEO's revenge," "How one woman brought down a corrupt system." The coverage is relentless, each story adding new details to the scandal. Crane's allies scramble to distance themselves, their previous loyalty evaporating in the face of public outrage. Former friends refuse to take his calls, business partners terminate their contracts, and social invitations dry up overnight. He becomes a pariah in the industry he once dominated. The legal consequences are swift and severe. The Attorney General's office launches a formal investigation into Crane's business practices, using the evidence Jordan provided as the foundation for a criminal case. Federal prosecutors express interest in potential RICO charges, treating his actions as part of a broader pattern of corruption. Jordan watches the consequences unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. She takes no pleasure in Crane's destruction, but she's gratified that justice is finally being served. The young woman who gave her the USB drive contacts her privately, expressing relief that the truth is finally out. The tech industry begins a period of soul-searching, with companies implementing new policies to prevent similar incidents. Diversity and inclusion programs are strengthened, not just as corporate window dressing, but as genuine efforts to create change. Jordan's courage in standing up to Crane inspires others to speak out about their own experiences with discrimination. The registration volunteer who questioned Jordan's presence issues a public apology, acknowledging her unconscious bias and committing to do better. The security guard who is asked to remove Jordan speaks out about the pressure he felt to comply with discriminatory orders, adding his voice to calls for systemic change. Within a week, Crane's downtown office building displays a "For Lease" sign. His penthouse apartment goes on the market, and his luxury car collection is quietly sold to pay legal fees. The man who once seemed untouchable has been reduced to a cautionary tale about the price of arrogance and cruelty. Jordan's own company sees a surge in investment and partnership opportunities as the industry recognizes her leadership and integrity. But more importantly, she receives messages from young professionals of color who tell her that her actions have inspired them to pursue their own dreams, despite the obstacles they face. The gala organizers implement new policies to prevent similar incidents, including diversity training for all staff and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. They also establish a scholarship fund in Jordan's name, supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs in the tech industry. The ballroom that witnessed Jordan's humiliation is transformed into a symbol of change. Future events held there include prominent discussions about diversity, inclusion, and corporate responsibility. The space becomes a reminder that power without accountability is ultimately fragile. Jordan stands once again in the same ballroom, but this time she's addressing a crowd gathered specifically to hear her speak. The audience includes many of the same people who witnessed her humiliation, but now they look at her with respect and admiration rather than contempt. "No one's worth lies in others' eyes," she says, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room. Her fingers brush against the locket at her throat, drawing strength from the memory of the mentor who taught her that dignity is something no one can take away. She speaks about her journey as a Black CEO, the obstacles she's faced, and the importance of persistence in the face of adversity. Her words are measured, thoughtful, free from bitterness, despite everything she's endured. The audience listens with rapt attention, many visibly moved by her grace under pressure. The system that allows discrimination to flourish is not just morally wrong, Jordan continues, it's economically inefficient. When we exclude talented people based on their race, gender, or background, we impoverish ourselves and our industries. Her argument is both ethical and practical, appealing to her audience's business sense as well as their conscience. She acknowledges the allies who stood with her, the young woman who provided crucial evidence, and the Attorney General who lent her authority to the cause. Change doesn't happen in isolation, she says. It requires courage from many people, each playing their part in creating a more just society. The audience responds with sustained applause, but Jordan raises her hand for silence. The real measure of our success, she says, will not be whether we remember this moment, but whether we act on its lessons in the days and years to come. Her challenge is clear: transform inspiration into action. As she concludes her remarks, Jordan shares information about a new website dedicated to workplace equity, encouraging the audience to get involved in creating systemic change. The response is immediate and overwhelming, with people signing up to volunteer, donate, and advocate for policy changes. The event ends with Jordan surrounded by supporters, but she takes a moment to step aside and reflect. She thinks about the young woman she once was, facing similar discrimination and feeling powerless to respond. That woman would be proud of what she's become, not just professionally, but personally. Her phone buzzes with a text from the Attorney General. Crane pleaded guilty to all charges. He'll serve 5 years minimum. Jordan reads the message with a sense of closure rather than triumph. Justice has been served. But the real victory is in the changes her actions have inspired. As the crowd disperses, Jordan notices a young black woman approaching hesitantly. Ms. Ellis, she says quietly, I wanted to thank you. I'm starting my own company, and after seeing what you did, I know I can face whatever comes. Jordan smiles and gives her a business card. Call me, she says. Let's talk about how I can help. The ballroom empties slowly, but the impact of the evening will last far beyond this single event. Jordan's story has become a catalyst for change, inspiring others to stand up to discrimination and fight for justice. The seeds she's planted will grow into a more equitable industry and ultimately a more just society. Jordan walks to her car alone, the city lights reflecting off the locket at her throat. She thinks about her mentor's words. Your voice is power. Use it. Tonight, she used her voice to change not just her own life, but the lives of countless others who will benefit from the systems she's helped to change. The question that remains is not whether justice was served, it was, but what happens next. Jordan has rewritten the rules of engagement, showing that dignity and preparation can overcome even the most entrenched systems of power. Her story is far from over, and the industry waits to see what she'll do next. As she drives through the quiet streets, Jordan allows herself a moment of satisfaction. She didn't just survive the attempted humiliation, she transformed it into a catalyst for change. The woman who entered that ballroom as a target left as a leader, and the industry will never be the same. Stand up when you see wrong. Your choice shapes justice. Jordan's example shows that individual courage can create systemic change, that one person's refusal to accept injustice can inspire others to act. The website she promoted receives thousands of visitors in the first hour, proof that people are ready for change. Your voice is power. Use it. The lesson of Jordan's story is clear. In a world where discrimination persists, silence is complicity. Every person has the ability to make a difference, whether by speaking up in small moments or taking dramatic action when the stakes are high. The industry watches with anticipation to see what Jordan will do next. Will she use her newfound influence to create new opportunities for underrepresented entrepreneurs? Will she run for office, seeking to create change through policy? Will she focus on mentoring the next generation of leaders? Whatever she chooses, one thing is certain. Jordan Ellis has proven that underestimating someone based on their appearance or background is not just morally wrong, it's strategically foolish. In a world where talent and determination matter more than traditional markers of status, those who judge by appearance do so at their own peril. The ballroom that witnessed her humiliation has become a symbol of transformation. Future events there will include discussions of diversity, inclusion, and corporate responsibility. The space itself has been changed by what happened there, transformed from a site of discrimination into a catalyst for justice. Jordan's story continues to spread through social media, news outlets, and industry publications. Each retelling adds new dimensions to the narrative, inspiring others to share their own experiences and commit to creating change. The movement she started shows no signs of slowing down. What's next for someone who rewrote the rules? The possibilities are limitless. Jordan Ellis has shown that with preparation, courage, and strategic thinking, even the most entrenched systems of power can be challenged and changed. Her story is proof that justice delayed is not always justice denied. Sometimes it's justice perfectly timed for maximum impact.